Thanks, Mike. It's excited to get the first game over with, come out victorious, but also, a lot of things we need to clean up, from penalties to our tackling, our leverage on the football. Did a nice job running the ball, but there was some times in there that we've got to hold on to the double teams a little better. I thought Carson did a nice job with the offense, and I think he'll just continue to get better every week.
If we went by the original schedule pre-pandemic, you would have been 8 games into your fall schedule, and now Utah State will be the first opportunity where they allow any fans at all. They've got a limited amount of fans as of today that are still allowed to watch that game. What's it been like to go that long through a football cycle without fans, and how do you think that'll change things this weekend, if at all?
Yeah, well, I think number one, going through the cycle and it being October 24th and having your first game, was obviously different. For us to possibly have, and I think we will, some of our parents up there to, cheer on their sons, I think is really neat and really important.
What and all the football you've been through in your career, how strange was Saturday with no one there, coming out of the tunnel with empty seats, some crowd noise pumped in, but how different was that now that you've had time to kind of assess it?
Well, it was like spring football. You go out there in spring and you do a lot of scrimmaging. We went up on October 10th to Dignity Health and had a scrimmage. No one was there. So, the energy is not quite the same, obviously, but we've got to look past that and have the competitiveness, of our football teams always got to be high.
It didn't seem to take that much time for your guys to knock the rust off, but in terms of Carson and his development, 12 for 25, does he just need time and reps to get into some sort of real rhythm and sync, or did he find it? And I got a follow-up COVID question after that.
Okay. I think this, Hacksaw, number one, his second start, different environment to some degree. I thought he did a nice job. There were a couple reads that we'd have liked for him to make another decision. But I think, first time or second time out there starting a football game, I thought he did a lot of good things, and I think he'll grow. He's a very intelligent young man, very competitive young man. So I think he'll continue to get better week to week.
And a follow-up question about COVID. If you have a player who tests positive, what is his quarantine or isolation period? Because it seems to be different from conference to conference. And also, as part of that COVID question, how many players have you had that have opted out, have elected not to play this fall?
I'll answer the second one. I think there's been 3. And we respect their decisions, and so I think there's been 3. As far as the COVID, I think every conference is a little different. I think every school is a little different, probably more so from where you're at. So, our medical staff and the health and wellness people here on campus will do a good look at what would happen if that happened.
Is there a number of days that would have to be separated from the program or negative tests?
Well, right now it's always 14, and that could go 14 to 10.
Just, how different does Utah State look without Jordan Love?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt, when you got a first-round draft pick as your quarterback, you're going to look a little different. I think them getting Jason Shelley from Utah, a guy who has started 5 games in the Pac-12, has experience, very athletic. They ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw up at Boise. I think Boise played awfully well when you look at the tape. They have a number of returning offensive linemen that are more experienced than the UNLV, so this will be different. Their length, when you look at their offensive line, it's a big line. And, they came on there in the third quarter and started to make it a football game and just couldn't get enough plays.
I also wanted to ask you a couple COVID questions. Sorry about that. But this is the first road trip. What are some of the protocols the Mountain West has kind of put in place for you guys that may be different from previous years of travel?
Well, I think it's as much, the Mountain West about every team being tested 3 times a week and all those kind of things. I think that's part of it. But I also think, the institutions themselves, we certainly don't want to go travel somewhere and come back and have the pandemic. So, as you look at our football team and what our guys have done and how they've done a great job with the testing, I think that part of it is more of a university, our protocols that we're taking.
And it is such a smaller population in Logan, but are guys tested once you guys land, or is it just kind of a land, go to the hotel, and then do a walkthrough, and then the game? Is that kind of the flow of it all?
That's pretty much it right there.
Cool. But are guys tested in Logan?
No, they'll be tested three times. We were Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
I'm curious, given all the craziness going on with what it took to get the season started and all the COVID and the fans and all blah, 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 were you able to take a second and appreciate the fact that you returned to the sideline as a head coach and you returned, to San Diego State as a head coach? And was there a moment before or after the game you kind of soaked all that in?
Very privileged, to be here and be in this position at San Diego State, and very excited. More so, taking a time after Saturday night and for our kids and our players and them having the opportunity to get back on the field. They love to play, they love to compete, and so probably a little bit more excitement for me was for them.
And speaking of one of those players, can you talk a little bit about Caden McDonald, named Mountain West Defensive Player of the Week, and just had a dominant performance? That whole defense did, but him especially flying around.
Yeah, well, Caden's one of those guys who works his tail off. I mean, he loves the game. He loves to get better every day, whether it's in winter conditioning, the weight room, or on the practice field. And he's a guy very dedicated, very good leader on our team. By example as much as anything else right now, but really happy for him in the way he played.
Hey, Brady, hope you're well. Utah State's going to have fans this weekend, right?
Yeah, I think they have a certain number. I'm not sure. I know they do. Yes, they will. Let me put it that way.
A couple questions. Just your reaction. What do you think it'll be like? I mean, given the world we've lived in the last 7 months, just the idea of playing a sporting event in front of, even if it's limited capacity.
Oh, I think it'd be great. Obviously we wish it was, we could get all our fans up there, but, playing in that environment and playing on the road, it's going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. Gary Anderson, I've got a lot of respect for Gary. I've known him a long time. He's a D-line coach in his heart, just like I am. And so it's going to be a physical football game. His teams always are, and a well-coached football game.
You often hear teams talk about enjoying going on the road and trying to silence the crowd and that sort of thing. Do you think your players will embrace the crowd and the noise and whatever animosity might be there just because it is kind of a foreign thing this year?
Oh, I think so. I think by far, I think they'll really enjoy the atmosphere.
And offensively speaking, obviously, you guys are very effective on the ground. There was a lot of talk about throwing the ball more. How was the balance offensively in game one compared to what you'd like to see, and maybe how it could develop as the season goes on? Thanks.
Yeah, well, I would say this, the objective is to win the game. And whatever we can do from an offensive kicking game or defensive plan, and plans do change during the course of a game, but the objective is to win. And for us to go out there, rush the ball, is always going to be very important. And then I think the number of throws probably was a good number for the type of game we were in.
After watching the film against UNLV last week and watching the film against Utah State last week, what are some of the adjustments your team has to make?
Well, I think, as always, from a defensive side of it, I think we got to make sure we're leveraging the ball, and being very sound and detailed in what we're trying to do. I think our physicalness and the speed we played with in the first half was really good. I think the third quarter, we didn't play with that kind of intent. And so we've got to make sure we're doing that for 60 minutes. Offensively, really pleased that 4 backs got to touch the football and they all added something. I think that's real positive. Really, Alamont, his first start in there at center, was really proud of the job he did, with his snaps and also, at the point of attack.
Looking at special teams, what is some of the adjustments Matt Rice has had to make in terms of punting over the last couple of months?
Well, I think it's something that obviously Matt had done before throughout his kicking life, I'll call it. But he's got to still make a couple adjustments. His 47, I think it was a net 47, was good. Some of that is a little bit skewed. He had a couple come off his foot, but did a nice job rolling. He continues to compete and get better at it. Had a good day yesterday with it. So the other thing in the special teams, we had the one punt that we fumbled that it was great to see Jordan get right back in there and did a good job with it.
Based on what you saw from the running backs, did Greg Bell earn a bulk of the carries for the game coming up Saturday, or will you continue to use each somewhat situationally?
Yeah, it's probably more situationally, Tom, still. Very happy with what Greg was able to accomplish. I thought he did a great job. Really, the offensive line did an awesome job. So we'll keep within our rotation, and there'll be a guy who gets a hot hand, and maybe that will be Greg.
And I know, big lead at halftime, but you still have to worry about winning the game. Were you able to try some things in the second half that you may not have tried if it was closer? And if so, what did you learn in the second half?
Well, I learned one thing probably more than anything. We got to do a better job. I got to do a better job at halftime because we didn't play, and being on the sideline, you could feel there wasn't the same intensity, the same energy, and I've got to do a better job to make sure we come out in the second half. To answer your question, no, we pretty much stayed into what we wanted to do. I do think, we had an opportunity into the half for a little bit of a 2-minute, which was great, and it was great teaching. And then at the end of the game, bleeding the ball, taking the time off the clock. I thought that was a great lesson for us also. So we were able to get some of those situational things accomplished in the UNLV game.
Coach, good to see you as always. I wanted to ask you about the Jesse Matthews touchdown catch. I know I'm not sure if you had seen it when you talked about it post game, but I'm sure you've had a chance to see it. And did they just get it wrong in your estimation?
Well, we made a phone call, and the one thing I can tell you, they thought in slow-mo, one angle they had, that they ruled that the ball hit the ground. I haven't seen that angle, but it is what it is.